Hey guys, you're back here, Blueberry Hill. So this is February 26th to March 1st. We're working on the entry door and the side door. Here I'm actually doing some trim for the windows that go into the main entry door. There's 4 windows. We ordered some online, 12 by 12 insulated e-glass. So we're fixing those up. They're 3/4 inch thick. That's what we asked for, and they'll fit into the doors. The doors are roughly 2 inches, just a hair under 2 inches thick. So here I'm making the trim panels that go hold the glass in. Fairly straightforward, 45-degree angle cuts, everything kind of lined up. And well, here's Angie trying to flip the door. It's pretty heavy now. I think it's about 150 pounds, maybe 200 pounds. We'll see what happens. Anyway, here you see me putting one of the first windows in. Pretty straightforward. The trim on the other side is going to hold the glass in. Put the same caulk I used for the windows in the main part of the house. I'm using to inset these windows as well. It's actually constructive adhesive, 795 from Dow Corning. Good stuff. Very easy to use, very manageable, and works extremely well. So using the same stuff. Here you're gonna see me make a little mistake though, coming right up. So I'm sure you've heard that motto, you know, measure twice, cut once. Well, yeah, okay, so I didn't. I tried to set this window in place after putting caulking in the hole, and guess what? It was a little bit tight, so I had to clean out the caulking. You saw me using my grinding wheel right there just to make the hole a tiny bit bigger, and now I'm chiseling the corners to make it the proper size as well. And then the window, of course, fits. So a little aggravation there, but you know, all my fault. I should have tried it. The windows are all 12 by 12. My holes are, this hole was pretty much 12 on 12. There's a little bit of pukey on the windows for them sealing it, because they are insulated windows, and that kind of stopped it from going in. And I'm not going to press on the window to get it in there. But anyway, here's me doing the caulk work to get the window in, and the final trim. I'm using my little brad nailer to secure all that stuff in. Fairly straightforward on that. The silicone actually helps glue down the trim as well, but I did basically three brad nails per piece, so not a big deal. The rest were kind of uneventful, except I did try to put the glass in that one. You saw me trimming a little bit with the cutoff wheel again, and that worked really well. A little smoky there, but that's because you're using a 10,000 RPMs on a piece of wood, so it's gonna smoke. But anyway, made it fit. Once they fell in place, I started putting the windows in, put the caulk in, and then set them in place with the trim. So the bad thing, my caulk gun, it's a big sausage gun. I can't find the tips anywhere, so I was using a tip that I used for the windows in the main house, which is the cut is very large, so it was a little more messy than I was hoping. And I ordered new tips, but they're not going to be here before I'm doing this. So anyway, the final work on the silicone is going to be with the proper tip, proper size tip, and so it'll be nice and clean. This stuff works extremely well though. If you kind of overdo it, you can cut it off with an X-Acto. Once it dries, you can cut it, manage it very easily. It's actually very pliable. If you have soapy water on your finger, you can smoothen it out really good. But aside from that, so here I'm going to start laying 2 plywoods I bought for the garage door to the house, using the same method as the other 2 doors. I don't have room. I was hoping to clear one of the tables off to do this, but obviously not. Here I'm spreading about, I think it's about 2 quarts of glue that I put on this thing. I'm using a roller that just spreads out the glue really well, and I'm making sure I have very good coverage. I have, you can see a gallon right there, dumping it out on there and spreading it with a roller. Once that's done, and I put the other piece of wood on there, I slide it around a little bit, and then kind of put my start walking on it a little bit to set it. It's also very close to my new truck, so I was trying to not do any damages there, but everything's kind of tight right now in the shop. I just got too much stuff everywhere. I'm sitting on top of the wood to make sure the glue kind of has a bite, and then I'm using quite a few 1-inch construction screws with a T25 head to secure everything together. Boy, I love those screws. You'll never strip that screw. The T25's awesome. That's pretty much what I'm using everywhere, different lengths of course. So while the doors, gluing up in there, I decided to work on the framing for the doors. I got 3 doors to do basically. 2 are pretty wide, one's fairly 31.5 inch door, but regardless, I make my own frames. It's 1x6s and 1x3s. I dadoed a recess for the weather seal, you'll see that later on, and now I'm gluing the 2 pieces together for later on. Hey guys, Utah here, Blueberry Hill. So here we are, it's February 28th. Boy, time flies. I tell you what, 2 months already into 22, and every time I think I'm going to be closer to finishing the house, it ain't really happening. Stuff's getting done, it's just that it's slow going. So you saw me earlier ripping some wood. I'm basically making you my own door jambs. I bought some of McCoy's which weren't long enough. They make them standard size height doors. Our doors are 92.5 inches tall, so obviously the framing's got to have to be just a little bigger than that. Rough opening's like 94. So anyway, these will go in there. This is fir, and I forget what the other one is. Can't remember. But anyway, I bought it from 2 different piles. Some of the wood I was getting at Fine Lumber, I didn't quite like the way it was warped out, or not very consistent grain, so I switched to the 3.5 inch fir, and that's doing pretty good. You saw me earlier finishing up the windows in the main entry door. Those are in. I'm waiting for this to cure. You saw me using that 795 Dow Corning silicone. It's a construction adhesive, black, same stuff I used on the windows in the house. Seal all that up. It works great. And then you saw me, this is the door from the garage to the inside of the house. I don't know why I waited to do this till now, but I was hoping to have the other doors off these tables so I could work on them. Parts are in order. Everything's taking, I don't know, week or 2 to get, so it's a bit of a pain. I can't find some of the stuff locally, so I'm having to wait till I get the stuff in my hand and I can continue the work. Obviously, I could have ordered stuff earlier if I would have known what to order. It is what it is. But anyway, I'm gonna switch to time lapse again and follow along if you can, and enjoy. Later. Bye. So the method to put the 1x3 to the 1x6, obviously, is I use popsicle sticks to actually spread the glue out nice and evenly. Then I use clamps on each end, and then I use the brad nailer all over the place to secure it. You can see the shadow line right there. That's where the weather strip is going to go between the door and the trim. It's a pressed-in weather strip. Most of the commercial doors, big doors, have that stuff in there. You might have heard me say I bought versions of these at McCoy's pre-built, but they were only, I can't remember how tall they were, but they were like 80-something inches, and I needed the 92.5. So there you go. It is what it is. But it was actually cheaper to build this than it was to buy them pre-made, obviously. I do have to prime them, no big deal, but regardless, I can make them any height I want. Just 3 sets of this, 3 sets of 9, or 3 sets of 3, sorry, 3 pieces for 3 doors, and then I cut everything to the right height and width, and we're good to go. So I'm sanding off the dowels that I just pounded into the banding that connected the maple to the main part of the door. Basically, I just got 3/8 inch dowels, glued them into the holes, cut them off with a little Japanese saw, and now I'm just sanding it all down nice and flush. Next, I'm going to use 3-inch wide veneer with heat-treated glue on it, and a very, very old iron. I've been using this iron to do veneer stuff for decades. It still works, so hey, why not? Anyway, the glue works pretty good. You just got to make sure you get it nice and warm and press it into the make it nice and flush. And then I'm using quite a few blades to make it all nice and flush with the door. Then I sand it down, and I continue on all the sides of the door. It works pretty good. After this, I'm going to obviously stain it because it's very bright. I didn't care what color this was when I bought the wood. I just found something. Believe it or not, I'm buying a lot of stuff on Amazon, go-to place, whatever. You can't find this stuff locally without spending a ton of money. Technically, a lot of the stuff is only 1-inch wide, so I needed 3-inch. So I started using my leg to actually press the iron into the door, and I was holding it there longer, and that worked really well. So that process was pretty cool. You'll see Angie in a second. She's helped me keep the place clean because I make a lot of trash doing this stuff. And there's the puppy helping, not really. So the rolls I bought, the 3-inch, were I believe 25 feet long. I bought 2. I had to buy 1 more because I'm doing the 3rd door as well. I have no idea why I order stuff in such small supplies, but it is what it is. And then just a slow go on the iron, and then the trimming works quite well. I just used a handheld blade from the knife. I didn't use it with the knife, and that worked pretty good. Then of course I go back and sand. I used 120 grit right there to take the corner off at a 45-degree angle, just to hit it pretty nice and not have any edges exposed. After this, we'll do the day or two later. I'm going to do the staining, and of course I'm going to do the cuts for the hinges themselves. There's Angie is helping me tape off the windows. We're getting ready for silicone and paint. Obviously I can't do the paint until I do the silicone. That's my process anyway. I'm still waiting on the tips for the caulking gun. That's coming in a day or two, so I'm just getting prepped. I'm cutting off any excess that silicone that kind of puked out on the edges there. Not a big deal. It just takes a while to do that because it all kind of wants to stick together. But I made a nice play on keeping the windows nice and clean. So here I'm getting ready to actually put the first set of hinges down. I'm measuring it off so they're all equally spaced. I found out that they're all separated by 22 inches between each other, and I'm doing 4 hinges per door just because they're heavy. So I'm marking that off. Next thing you know, I'm going to use a Ryobi jig to actually cut the recesses for the hinges. And I forgot to put one little part in that thing, so it made a little round offset hole on the left side. You can barely see it. Anyway, it worked pretty well. I find some of these kind of jigs little janky because they're I don't know, the plastic setup. It works okay. You just can't rush it, and be gentle with the product. So anyway, I'm using a chisel to do the corners because I have hinges that are square, tight corners, 90 degrees, and the jig, the cutting blade is round. So I cut it, and then I take the chisel and take the corners out, and that worked pretty good. These are thick hinges. They're about 1/8 of an inch, and as long as they're recessed properly into the door, we're good to go. Here's a bit of a closer look on the actual part. So I marked everything down. I was trying to show you what hinges I bought. They're not very cheap. These are high-end hinges with ball bearings, made for heavy doors. And there you see the jig working. You basically find the location for it, you mark it, and then I had to set the depth for the blade to cut only as deep as the hinge is required to, and off I went. It's pretty easy. It's actually the first time I'm doing this kind of stuff. I've never hung a door in my life, so it is what it is. They came out quite well. The next part's going to be doing the same stuff by hand on the frames that you saw me build earlier. They're drying. They're probably finished drying, but that's going to be done tomorrow, which is March 2nd. So anyway, there it is. And now I'm doing a little polyurethane action on the edges of the doors. Let that dry up, and then the next day we're going to do the framework. So here's me installing the hinges onto the door. The door's finished. I just have to put the hinges where they're supposed to be. I screwed them down totally, and then I mark the frame on where the hinges go on the frame side. I mark them, then I use a chisel to notch it out to the depth and the size of the hinge. I did that for both the doors. Actually, it's going to be a third door as well, the garage to the from the garage to the house. But anyway, pretty straightforward. Just a typical setup. I know a lot of people do this once they have the frames up or whatever. I thought it was a lot easier doing it when the frames weren't actually assembled. Once you smooth it out, I'm actually using some air tools to make it nice and smooth, and then take the corners out with the chisel, and ready to go. Then next step was to assemble the frames. Of course, making them square is important. I had a little support plywood on the bottom, keep everything nice and tight. And I'm using 3-inch screws and glue at the top. Plenty of bite area, and actually strong enough to stand it up. Here's the second door. This is the actual entry door to the house. The prior one was for the side door. So here I'm trying to square it up. I had a little trouble with this one for whatever reason. By the way, the frames are, the wood's mostly straight, right? So it's the best you can do, I guess. And then when we screw to the jambs, that'll straighten all out. Hey guys, March 2nd. So here we are working on the doors. I just finished doing the frames. You saw a time lapse of that. I'll do a little walkabout of what I've been doing. So here are the kind of heavy duty frames. They're ball bearing, super smooth, no rattling, no nothing. They went in pretty easily. I used a Ryobi jig and a router. They provide a bit, and you basically just walk around the sides of the hinge that you have. There's some settings in there that you can actually modify, manipulate a little bit, and adjust everything. So these are 4.5 inch by 2 inch hinges, and I did 4 per door just because it's heavy. It's probably overkill, but it is what it is. And then you saw me do these frames here. This is for the entry, and this is for the side. So they're sitting here. This one's almost ready to dry. I'm going to prime them later and put them on. We'll install them tomorrow. I still have to cut the holes in the container, but once Jake gets here, we'll see about doing that. I didn't want to cut the holes too early, but we have very good weather for the next 2 weeks, so no issues with rain or anything like that. But regardless, it rains in different directions than the holes are going to be, except for the one on the side that can get wet. But anyway, I need a helping hand with the doors. They're very heavy. If I was to guess, I'd say they're probably 150 pounds, maybe even on the 200 pound side. The vinyl flooring's heavy. If you ever picked up a box of those things, so it weighs quite a bit. And then the two sets of plywood that's sitting in there makes everything a little heavier. And of course, the entry door has 4 windows as well. Not insignificant. They're e-glass, so they're insulated, double pane. And they're going to look the part. They're going to match the other windows we have in the house, so we're good there. Anyway, that's it for today. I'm going to wait for the frame to dry, and I'm going to prime it with Kills primer. Should be good. Later. Down to the priming aspect, pretty easy. Just use some Kills stuff. Works pretty good. And now it's March 3rd, so here I'm modifying the door jamb a little bit for the size of the door. I had to move over a tiny bit because the frame of the center section of the door was right in the way. So that was adjusted for the size of the door I made, and now I'm using the plasma cutter to cut the steel out. So as you might know, the ends of the containers where the doors are, or the walls that are even non-movable, that's a little bit thicker steel than the walls, so it took a little more effort to actually do this. These were actual doors. They're about they're just under 1/8 inch thick. Of course, then I use my big giant 7-inch angle grinder to smoothen everything out. And then I'm going to use a diamond grinding wheel to make the concrete nice and smooth and level. There it is. And I have a big fan behind me, so I'm not sucking in the dust from the concrete. It's really bad for you. I guess I should have had a mask on anyway, but you know, it is what it is. So here's Jake and I are installing the door frame. We made sure the hinge side is level, and then we worked our way around that. And then in a minute you'll see us put the door in place. The door's pretty heavy, but anyway, not a big deal for both of us. Jake would hold it. We raised it off about 1 inch off the ground, 1.1 inch actually. The threshold is 1 inch. I'm still waiting on that. I'm not sure exactly when it's going to get here. But anyway, this wasn't too bad. This door is a lot smaller than the other one. Jake was holding it while I put in basically 2 screws per hinge just to make sure everything was good. And yay, closes, opens, yay. And it runs really smooth, so pretty cool. So on to door number 2, this is the entry door. I kept the 2x4 sill down there, and then when Jake arrived, he wanted to use the plasma, so off he went, started cutting the hole. This ended up being a little bit undersized, so we spent a little more time cutting the wedge a little bigger. But here you see, just for fun, I taped it from the outside, and you see the door kind of fall out. Well, the wall fall out for the door. But anyway, it's kind of fun doing that. The plasma cutter shoots quite a bit of spark, so you know, no fires. Yay, we got a hole. Alright, so now to the grinding. Cleaned up the concrete down there. I have the fan running in the hallway. You can see it kind of in the corner there, and it's blowing all the concrete out as I do this, so I didn't breathe any of that stuff. Once the concrete was ground, of course I make sure all the metal's nice and clean there, nice and flat, and then we're ready for the door frame. So I kind of got lucky. I measured this out. It was probably not more than 1/4 inch to spare, shoving that in there. You can see a little bit of light on the door frame, but not much. Of course, 2x4s aren't straight. Even the frame wood is not 100% straight. It's like everything seems to have a little bow in it, but whatever. It worked out. We got it set up pretty good. It was nice and tight in there. Take the support frame off, and then we're ready for the door. So we had the 1 1/8 and 1/8 wedge on the bottom, or supports, and then Jake was holding the door while I screwed it to the frame. Basically so the door is heavy enough where we couldn't put a leverage on it, so we had a little help from the girls, and they came over, we hung the door, we're good to go. And then I did some minor adjustments a day later, but not a big deal. And then of course I painted the frames. Here I'm working on the entry door to the garage, from the garage. So here I'm just cutting the door to size, cutting it to width. Angie's going to come and help and hold it while we cut the end off. This door I actually put the plies together before I cut it to width. That was a lot easier because it makes a nice smoother cut, a little easier to clean up. Here I'm putting the side banding on, which hold the hinges and actually hide the fact that it's plywood, makes it solid wood. I used stuff that I had on the shelf, so it's not consistent. I think one was mahogany, the other two were oak, but not a big deal. It was just for support and actually having a hardwood there. So continue with that, drilling holes. They have several 2-inch screws, hold all that stuff together with a bunch of glue, make it nice and strong. So one thing I didn't show with the other doors, I have the screw holes, they're recessed into the wood. Now I'm using dowels, punch into the holes with glue, and that makes it nice and smooth. Pretty straightforward setup, just hide the screws, cut them down with a Japanese saw, and then come back later with a belt sander and make everything nice and smooth. I've had a little bit of time doing this kind of stuff on other furniture projects and stuff. Here I'm just trying to make it smooth. I'm not trying to, if I eat through the veneer, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, then once that was done, everything was dry, I started putting the one side of the vinyl planking on. That was pretty straightforward. It actually went really quick this time around, since I've been there twice already, but pretty easy. It's almost done. Basically I'm using a little roller. It's actually a glue spreader as well, but I'm using that as a roller to push the vinyl into the wood. And then next you'll see me move over to, while I was waiting for that to dry, I went and started doing the silicone work, the sealant on the door, and I'll come back the next day and cut the excess off and make it nice and clean. So here's March 5th, we're continuation on the door, basically using the router to edge, cut all the vinyl off, make it smooth. Then Angie and I flipped it, and we're gluing the other side. This took pretty much no time. The weather was actually pretty good the last couple of days. It's been going up and down. We had 80-degree weather, and then the next day we had 40-degree weather. So here you see us in shorts because it's nice and warm. And this went fairly quick. This is our last vinyl planking install at the moment, and it worked out pretty good. Then you wait for that to dry, and then I'll cut off the excess with the router again and continue. So here we are finishing up the last parts of the glue up. Waited 24 hours for the glue to set, and I'm going to router off the excess once again. And then we're going to use a veneer which has heat glue on it, heat activated glue. And I'll use a very old iron that I've been keeping around for probably 25 years. It still works for that purpose, and that's what I'm going to use. So with everything cut off, here I'm just doing a quick cleanup so I can put the veneer on. It's heated treated glue on the veneer. It's a 3-inch veneer. The door is roughly 2 inches, and I couldn't use a 2-inch band veneer strip. It was just too close to alignment issues, so I used the 3 and then cut off the excess, and you'll see that in a minute. Here I was using the belt sander there real quick to just to make everything nice and flat, make sure it's smooth, and I'm running around with a razor blade just cutting off anything that I can see. Here's the veneer going on. Basically you put a little bit of pressure, let the heat kind of activate it, and then force it into the wood. It seems to work pretty good. I mean, they use this for furniture kind of stuff as well. So anyway, this should work. And then I'm gonna, once I do this, I stain it, and then I'm gonna I use polyurethane on it to make it nice and solid. There's my student of the day, right? That little dog running around and trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing. So there you see my trusty old iron. It's probably, 25 years old, I'm sure. Anyway, it's on full heat setting, no water, and it heats up the glue fairly nicely. And I'm using my leg to actually press the iron against the veneer and into the wood. This takes a little bit of time because the iron's not quite that hot, so I have to take my time, let the glue heat up, and the odd time I'd put my finger on the exposed piece of the veneer to make sure it was soft and actually gluing. It's very sticky stuff once it sets. So next I'm going to show you the Ryobi jig that I used to recess the hinges into the door and a router bit that they provide with the jig. It works very nicely. This is my third door, so it goes fairly quick. I'm cheating on the bottom of the Ryobi jig with a piece of paper just to offset the hinge properly. They have rubber feet that didn't quite align like I wanted. So anyway, and here you see me doing, I kind of made up my own color for the veneer so it matches the door, the vinyl, and on I went. And then I poly it, and we're good to go, and we're going to hang them tomorrow. Yay! Anyway.